June 21st, 1945. Somno 9:45 hours, Cambridgeshire, England. The air in the barracks smelled of unwashed bodies and old fear. 63 women sat on their cots, listening to boots approach on gravel. They had been in the camp for 3 days, 3 days of processing, medical checks, work assignments, 3 days of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, a knock on the door. A British sergeant entered, clipboard in hand, a female corporal beside him. "Right," he said in careful German. "We've finished the bathhouse. It's ready for use." The women stared at him. Bathhouse. The word felt foreign. "Hot water," the corporal added. She was older, maybe 40, with a medical corps armband. "Soap, towels, privacy. You'll go in groups of 10, 30 minutes per group. No exceptions." Silence. The kind that holds a question too dangerous to ask aloud. The sergeant consulted his clipboard. "First group, follow Corporal Henderson. She'll show you the facilities. Bring nothing. Everything you need is provided." 10 women stood. Slowly. Among them, Rosa, 29, a former clerk from Hamburg who had not been truly clean since January. She followed the others out of the barracks, across the compound to a low wooden building she had assumed was storage. The corporal opened the door. Inside, a row of private stalls, each with a wooden tub, a bench, hooks for clothes. Steam rose from somewhere deeper in the building. The smell of soap, real soap, filled the air. Rosa stopped in the doorway. She had expected humiliation. She had received privacy. If this moment already changed how you see the war, subscribe. The next will surprise you even more. Rosa had been a clerk once, working in a Wehrmacht supply office in Hamburg. She had joined the auxiliary services in 1943 because her husband had been killed at Stalingrad, and she needed work, needed wages, needed something to fill the silence. They had trained her in inventory management and stationed her at a logistics depot. For 2 years she processed requisition forms and tried not to think about what the supplies were being used for. By April 1945, the depot was being evacuated ahead of British forces. Rosa and 30 other women were ordered to retreat east, then west, then anywhere that wasn't being overrun. They walked for 3 weeks, sleeping in ditches, eating whatever they could scavenge. When British tanks appeared on the road, Rosa had been too exhausted to run. She had simply stood there while a lieutenant checked her papers and directed her to a truck. The journey to England had taken 5 days. Train, ship, train again. Throughout it all, there had been no opportunity to bathe. No facilities, no time, no privacy. By the time they arrived at the camp in Cambridgeshire, Rosa's skin itched constantly. Her hair was matted, and she smelled of sweat and dirt and the accumulated filth of 6 months of war's collapse. She had assumed this was permanent, that prisoners did not deserve cleanliness, that hygiene was a luxury reserved for victors. She had been wrong. The transport across the channel had been rough. The women had been packed into the hold of a converted cargo ship, benches bolted to the deck, no privacy, minimal ventilation. Rosa had spent most of the crossing trying not to vomit, trying not to think about the smell. 300 unwashed women in an enclosed space. When they docked at Harwich, British soldiers had herded them onto trains with surprising efficiency. Not cruel, but firm. The trains had travelled through countryside that looked impossibly green, impossibly intact. Rosa had pressed her face to the window and watched villages slide past. Churches, shops, people going about their lives as if there had never been a war. The camp had appeared in late afternoon, a collection of wooden barracks and Nissen huts on the edge of farmland. A fence surrounded the compound, but it was low, more boundary than barrier. Guards stood at the gate, but they looked bored rather than threatening. On the first night, a British officer had addressed them in the mess hall. "You are prisoners of war under British military jurisdiction. You will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. You will work, you will be fed, you will be housed, and you will be provided with facilities for hygiene. This is not negotiable. This is the law." Rosa had not understood what he meant until now. Corporal Henderson led the first group into the bathhouse. She spoke in halting German, gesturing to demonstrate. "Each stall has a tub. Fill it from the tap. Hot water on the left, cold on the right. Soap is on the shelf. Towels on the hook. You have 30 minutes. Wash your hair, your body, everything. When you're done, leave your old clothes in the basket. Clean clothes are stacked by the door. Understood?" The women nodded, too stunned to speak. Henderson pointed Rosa toward the first stall. Go on then. Water's hot. Don't waste it. Rosa entered the stall and closed the door. It had a latch. Privacy. Actual privacy. She stood there for a moment, processing this, then began to undress. Her uniform was stiff with dirt and sweat, the fabric worn through at the elbows. She peeled it off and dropped it in the basket. Then she turned to the tub. The tap. She turned it, left for hot, and water poured out. Steam rose. She touched it. It was hot. Actually, hot. She filled the tub, added cold water to temper it, and climbed in. The water closed over her legs, her body, hot and clean and real. She sat there for a long moment, just feeling it. Then she picked up the soap. It was yellow, plain, utilitarian, but it lathered. She scrubbed her arms, her body, her hair. 6 months of filth dissolving into the water. She scrubbed until her skin was red, until the water turned grey. Then she drained the tub and filled it again. Clean water. She rinsed her hair, rinsed her body, and then sat there, breathing steam, feeling human for the first time in half a year. They gave us hot water, she wrote later in a diary she kept on scraps of paper, and soap and privacy. I cried in the bath, not from sadness, from disbelief. The system that governed this provision was not charity. It was policy, rooted in international law, military doctrine, and the understanding that health required hygiene. A directive from the British War Office in 1940 had been explicit. Prisoners of war will be provided with adequate facilities for personal hygiene, including bathing, laundry, and sanitation. This is a requirement, not a privilege. The logic was threefold. Security. Clean prisoners were less likely to spread disease, less likely to become ill and require medical resources. Diplomacy. The Geneva Conventions required humane treatment, and hygiene was part of that. How Britain treated enemy prisoners influenced how British soldiers were treated abroad. Morality, because denying basic hygiene was a form of cruelty that civilized nations rejected. It was not perfect. There were camps where facilities were inadequate, where resources were stretched, where the system failed. But in most places, most of the time, it held. By the summer of 1945, Britain held over 400,000 German POWs. The majority were provided with bathing facilities, soap, and clean clothing. And in Cambridgeshire, that meant a purpose-built bathhouse with hot water and privacy stalls. When Rosa emerged from the bathhouse 30 minutes later, she was wearing a clean dress. Simple, grey, slightly too large, but clean. Her hair was wet but clean. Her skin felt raw but clean. She stood in the sunshine outside the building and felt the warmth on her face and thought, I am clean. For the first time in 6 months, I am clean. The other women emerged one by one, all wearing the same dazed expression. One of them, a young radio operator named Hilda, said quietly, I had forgotten what it felt like to be clean. So had I, Rosa said. Corporal Henderson appeared with a basket of combs. For your hair, she said. Keep them. They're yours. The women took the combs, too overwhelmed to speak. Rosa ran hers through her wet hair and felt knots pull free. She thought, they gave us combs. They gave us dignity. The days found a rhythm. Mornings began with roll call, then breakfast, porridge, toast, tea. After breakfast, work assignments. Rosa was assigned to the camp laundry, washing uniforms and bedding for the camp, British and prisoner alike. The work was hard, physical, but it was purposeful. And twice a week, bathhouse access. 30 minutes, hot water, soap, privacy. The first week, the women had been silent in the bathhouse, still adjusting to the reality of it. And by the second week, they began to talk. Quiet conversations about small things, about home, about the future. By the third week, the bathhouse had become a refuge, a place where they could feel human again. Rosa came to treasure those 30 minutes. She would scrub her body, wash her hair, and sit. In the hot water, eyes closed, letting the steam surround her. For 30 minutes, she was not a prisoner. She was just a woman, taking a bath. One afternoon, Rosa noticed that Hilda's hair was falling out in clumps. Malnutrition, stress, lice. Any combination could cause it. Hilda tried to hide it, But Rosa saw. She told Corporal Henderson. The corporal took Hilda to the medical station. The camp doctor, a captain with kind eyes, examined her, prescribed vitamins and a medicated shampoo, and gave her a scarf to cover her head. "It'll grow back," he said in careful German. "Once you're healthier, give it time." Hilda thanked him quietly. Later she said to Rosa, "He cared that my hair was falling out. A British doctor cared." "They care about health," Rosa said. "Even ours." "They treated Hilda's hair loss," Rosa wrote, "as if she were a person who deserved medical care." One day, while Rosa was scrubbing sheets in the laundry, a British private named Matthews approached with a bundle of uniforms. He was young, maybe 23, with a northern accent Rosa could barely understand. He set the bundle down and paused. "You lot getting on all right with the bathhouse?" he asked. Rosa looked up. "Yes, thank you." He nodded. "Good. Some of the lads were worried it wasn't enough. Hot water, I mean. That it might run out." "It's more than enough," Rosa said. He looked relieved. "Right, good. Just wanted to check." He left. Rosa stared after him, trying to process the idea that British soldiers had been worried about whether German prisoners had enough hot water. One afternoon, Corporal Henderson showed Rosa a photograph, a young man in British Army uniform. "My brother," she said. "He's a prisoner in Germany. I don't know where. I haven't heard from him in 6 months." Rosa looked at the photograph. The young man looked scared, trying to hide it. She looked up at Henderson. "I'm sorry." Henderson tucked the photograph away. "I just hope someone over there is treating him half as well as we're treating you." Rosa did not know what to say. That night she thought about Henderson's brother, about reciprocity, about the strange web of care and fear that connected them all. If you're seeing this war in a new light, subscribe. The next scene will challenge you even more. The transformation was gradual. Rosa had been told for years that the British were ruthless, that they bombed civilians, that they treated prisoners brutally, that capture meant suffering. She had believed this because everyone believed this, because the propaganda had been relentless, because doubt was dangerous. But the British did not act like the monsters she had been promised. They built bathhouses with hot water and privacy. They provided soap and towels and clean clothes. They cared whether prisoners' hair was falling out. The propaganda cracked. Not all at once, but piece by piece, like soap dissolving dirt. One day, Rosa realized she was no longer afraid of the guards. She was just grateful for the bathhouse, the laundry work, the small kindnesses that accumulated into dignity. Private Matthews told her once while dropping off uniforms, "My mum always said you can tell a lot about people by how they treat those who can't fight back. Seems right to me." Rosa thought about that for a long time. In September, the camp held a small gathering to mark the end of summer. There was music, a gramophone playing records, German and British both. There was food slightly better than usual, and there was a brief speech from the commandant thanking the prisoners for their work and reminding them that they would be repatriated in stages over the coming months. After the speech, Corporal Henderson approached Rosa. "You've been here 4 months now. How are you managing?" Rosa thought about lying. Instead, she said, "Better than I expected. The bathhouse helps." Henderson smiled. That was the point. Hard to feel human when you're filthy. "Yes," Rosa said. "I had forgotten that." Repatriation began in October. The women were called in groups, processed, given papers, sent back to Germany or to displaced persons camps if they had nowhere to go. Rosa was in the third group. She packed her small bundle. The comb they had given her, a bar of soap, the diary written on scraps of paper. Private Matthews gave her a packet of soap on the morning she left. "For the journey," he said. "And after. Everyone needs soap." She took it. "Thank you for everything." He shrugged. "Just did what was decent." "It was more than decent," she said. "It was everything." Rosa found her sister in Hamburg in November 1945. The city was rubble, but her sister was alive, living in a displaced persons camp. They held each other and cried and did not speak for a long time. Rosa stayed in Germany. She worked as a clerk again, then as a secretary in a school. She married in 1950, a shopkeeper, kind and patient, and had 2 children. She kept a bathroom in her house that she cleaned obsessively, that she filled with good soap and clean towels. She never spoke about the war, but every time she bathed, she thought about the bathhouse in Cambridgeshire, about hot water and privacy, and the moment when she had realised that the enemy saw her as a person who deserved cleanliness. She kept the bar of soap Private Matthews had given her, unused, wrapped in paper, in a drawer beside her bed. In 1987, Rosa returned to England. She took a train to Cambridgeshire and tried to find the old camp. It was gone. The land returned to farmland, the barracks dismantled, the bathhouse torn down. But she found the approximate location and stood among the fields where the compound had been. She thought, "This is where I learned that civilization was not grand gestures but small mercies. Hot water, soap, privacy, the insistence that even prisoners deserve to be clean." She did not stay long. She just stood there, remembering the steam, the hot water, the feeling of being human again. Then she left. The sergeant had stood in the barracks doorway and announced, "We've finished the bathhouse." The women had braced for humiliation. What they received instead was hot water, soap, towels, and privacy. The restoration of dignity they had thought was lost forever. If this story reminded you that history is written in gestures as much as battles, subscribe. You'll find more truths here than in any textbook. In 2004, Rosa died peacefully in her sleep. Her children found a box in her closet. Letters, photographs, a comb, and a bar of soap wrapped in paper from 1945. One letter, written but never sent, was addressed to the British soldiers who had built the bathhouse. It said, in careful English, "You gave us hot water and soap. You gave us privacy. You gave us the chance to feel human again when we had forgotten what that felt like. Thank you." The children could not deliver the letter, but they kept it anyway because some gratitude transcends time and distance. It just needs to exist. The barracks had smelled of unwashed bodies and fear. The women had sat on their cots waiting for the worst. Then a British voice had said, "The bathhouse is ready. Hot water, soap, privacy." The war had taught them fear, the peace taught them mercy. And mercy, they learned, was not the absence of punishment. It was the presence of small dignities. A bathhouse with privacy stalls, hot water that actually ran hot, soap that actually lathered, towels that were actually clean. That was civilization. Not the grand treaties or the victory parades, but the quiet decision to build a bathhouse for prisoners, to provide hot water, to understand that cleanliness was not a luxury but a requirement of human dignity, to insist that even the enemy deserved to be clean. The war had ended. But the lesson remained. The decency was built in small acts, repeated daily until they became structure. Until hot water and soap were not gifts, but rights. Until privacy was not a privilege, but a standard. Until even prisoners could stand in steam and feel human again.